Please give a warm farm bureau welcome to Senator Rand Paul.
Thank you and welcome. It's good to be. I always know I'm going to get fed one good breakfast every time I get to come to the Farm Bureau, and I think I had too much once again this year. I've got good news for you and bad news. All right. Good news is your government's open, and bad news is your government's open. It's open and still borrowing a little more than $1 million every minute. And if you think to yourself, well, government's not too big, maybe, what could we get rid of? I'll give you a couple of stories of things we might start with. Anybody ever dealt with the USDA? USDA, let's see, there was a guy wanting to sell some milk from his cow out in California at the organic food store. The USDA, do you know the USDA has actually armed agents? They came and shut down an organic food store for selling milk. They arrested an Amish farmer for selling milk across state lines. John and Judy Dollarite wanted to teach their kids some how to run a business, since they got him a couple of bunnies. He was 14-year-old, and one thing led to another, and bunnies became many more bunnies, and they had a nice little business. And they asked someone at their church who was a USDA agent, and they said, well, do we need a permit? And they said this, and they got it. And apparently they didn't have the right permit, and they got a surprise inspection from the USDA, and they got a fine for $90,000 for their 14-year-old's rabbit population, their rabbit business. And they said, $90,000, how are we going to pay that? And they said, well, we take credit card. But if you don't pay by credit card, within 30 days, your fee will be, or your fine will be $3.1 million. This went on for about a year or two. It was so outrageous as to be ridiculous, almost to be unbelievable, but it went on for a year or two. Finally, different politicians got involved. This was in Nixa, Missouri, and they finally decided to drop the charges, but government officials don't want to let you off the hook. They wanted to do one more thing. They said, okay, we'll let you off of the fine, but you have to sign a consent decree to never have anything to do with farm animals again. They lived on a farm. So, for goodness sakes, we've gone a little bit too far on some of these things. I'll give you another bunny example, rabbit example. Marty the magician only has one rabbit, okay? And he treats his rabbit very well. It's part of his show. He does elementary school magic shows. The government told him that he would be subject to surprise inspections, and out of some misplaced, misbegotten humanitarianism, he has to have a evacuation plan for his rabbit in case of natural disaster. So if he doesn't have it at all times with him, it's a $25,000 fine. So he had to pay some lawyer to write up. He has a 25-page evacuation plan for his rabbit in case of a natural disaster. And the USDA agent, he was having a conversation with him. He says, well, you mean I could kill the rabbit and eat it in front of the kids, and I wouldn't need a permit? That's right. But you got to have a permit to pull it out of her hat. So we've let things that sometimes were well-intentioned get kind of out of hand, and that's the truth of so many things. I'll give you one more example. Clean Water Act. Probably everybody in this room agrees nobody should be allowed to dump chemicals in the Ohio River. We don't want that. But at the same time, what's happened over time is we now interpret dirt to be a pollutant and your backyard or your farm to be a wetlands. So a lot of times we're now arresting and imprisoning people for tiling and draining water and improving the quality of their land. Ken Lucas down in southern Mississippi got 10 years in prison. He's 70 years old. He was developing lots for real estate, and all he did was bring in clean dirt to raise the elevation. And they convicted him of the RICO Act, conspiracy to violate the wetlands, the Clean Water Act. He went to jail for 10 years. His partner was 80, went to jail for 10 years. They're still in jail. His daughter was a nurse and part-time seller of these lots. She got 84 months. She'd never ever been arrested, never gotten a traffic ticket. She got 84 months in federal prison for this. She had a 2-year-old at home. So when people think that everything's just going along fine, we need to restrain our government. The whole idea of the Constitution was not to restrain you, it was to restrain government, so government wouldn't get out of control. I personally still think government's out of control. I will continue to still fight to make your lives easier, to allow you to engage in your business, make a profit, support your family, free of excessive government intrusion. Thank you very much for having me.